Beloved, every season has a purpose, and every cycle has an expiration date. There are times when life seems like it is repeating itself, where struggles recycle, where disappointments replay, and where limitations try to dictate your destiny. But hear this today, God is sending a sudden opportunity that will break every cycle at once. The difference between a cycle and a season is this: seasons are appointed by God, but cycles are often sustained by human choices, habits, and mindsets. A season must end, but a cycle can continue endlessly if nothing interrupts it. That's why some people remain trapped in patterns of lack, defeat, fear, or delay, not because God has not promised them more, but because the cycle has not yet been broken. But divine interruption is coming. God specializes in orchestrating sudden moments that break through the ordinary. Think of Joseph. One night he was a prisoner, bound by a cycle of rejection, false accusation, and forgotten promises. But in one day, through one divine opportunity, God shifted his story from the dungeon to the palace. It wasn't a gradual change, it was sudden. One opportunity broke every cycle at once. What is a sudden opportunity? It is not something you can predict or manufacture. It is something God releases in alignment with his timing. It is an open door that man cannot shut. It is a favor that doesn't make sense in human logic. It is the moment when years of waiting are swallowed up by one breakthrough. But hear me clearly. Opportunity does not come to the unprepared. God prepares you in the hidden place, so when the sudden opportunity arrives, you are ready to step into it. David was anointed as a shepherd boy, hidden away in fields, but his preparation with the sling and the lion prepared him for the sudden moment when Goliath appeared. That opportunity broke Israel's cycle of fear and elevated David into national recognition. Cycles are broken when heaven's timing meets human obedience. This is why you must stay faithful, even when nothing seems to change. Keep praying, keep sowing, keep learning, keep believing. Because when the sudden opportunity comes, it won't just shift one area. It will affect everything connected to you. One open door will cause chains to fall in multiple areas. Some of you have been dealing with generational cycles, patterns that travel through bloodlines. Cycles of poverty, broken marriages, delay, sickness, limitation. But God says, I am sending a sudden opportunity that will stop what has flowed for generations. What took decades to build up will collapse in a single moment of divine intervention. This is why you must be spiritually alert. Opportunities don't always look like miracles. Sometimes they look like responsibility. Sometimes they look like a person you meet, an idea you receive, or a door that suddenly opens. If you misinterpret it, you might dismiss it as ordinary. But discernment will show you, this is the moment I've been waiting for. Don't miss this truth. One opportunity from God can redeem lost years. It can restore wasted time. It can bring acceleration that puts you ahead of schedule. That's the kind of opportunity God is releasing in this hour. Not just to bless you, but to end cycles, to shift generations, and to manifest his kingdom on earth. So lift your expectation. Stop rehearsing your failures. Stop magnifying your cycles. And start preparing for divine interruption. God is not bound by your past. He is not intimidated by your patterns. And he is not limited by your mistakes. The same God who opened the Red Sea in a moment, who released Paul and Silas with one earthquake, who filled a barren womb overnight. He is the God who is about to send you an opportunity that will break every cycle at once. Would you like me to also create a YouTube description, timestamps, and hashtags for this speech like we did for your previous videos, so you can directly use it for your channel? Cycles are sustained by choices, but seasons are appointed by God. When you understand this truth, it changes how you perceive life, challenges, and even delays. A season is something God himself sets in place. Just as the earth rotates through winter, spring, summer, and autumn, so your life passes through seasons that are ordained and predetermined by God. You cannot rush a season, and you cannot extend it when God has declared it is over. A season has an appointed time to begin and an appointed time to end. It is under divine authority, which means no human effort or resistance can alter it. But a cycle is different. A cycle is sustained not by God's appointment, but by human choices, decisions, and patterns. Cycles are often the result of repeated actions, thoughts, and habits that create a loop of behavior or outcome. For example, someone may go through a cycle of financial struggle, not because God has ordained a season of poverty, but because of decisions they continue to make with money. Someone else may be stuck in a cycle of broken relationships, not because it is their destiny to always be abandoned, but because certain choices, patterns, or emotional wounds are being repeated. A cycle continues for as long as the person keeps fueling it with the same choices, attitudes, and behaviors. This is why some people feel like their lives never change. They confuse cycles with seasons. They think they are in a season of struggle, waiting for God to end it, when in fact they are in a cycle that requires a new decision to break it. If a season is appointed by God, a cycle is appointed by man's decisions. And the danger is that cycles can extend for years, even decades, if there is no interruption. That's why many people live beneath the fullness of their destiny. They are waiting for a divine shift while continuing to feed the very cycle that holds them in place. Understanding the difference gives you power. When you recognize that a certain struggle is not an ordained season, but a cycle of repeated patterns, you can stop asking God to change it and start asking Him for the wisdom and courage to break it. God will never override the authority He has given you over your choices. He will provide the grace, the guidance, and the opportunity, but it is your responsibility to shift what sustains the cycle. A cycle can be broken in a single moment when a person makes a different choice, aligns with truth, and takes responsibility for the patterns that have governed their life. Cycles often masquerade as seasons because they last so long. A person may say, "This is just my season of hardship," when in reality it is a cycle of fear or disobedience. They may say, "It's just my season of delay," when it is a cycle of procrastination or unbelief. The enemy uses cycles to convince you that this is God's doing, that you are meant to stay in this loop until He decides otherwise. But that is deception. God's seasons are purposeful and progressive. They always move you toward growth, maturity, and fulfillment. Cycles, on the other hand, keep you stagnant, repeating the same lessons without advancement. When you look at Scripture, you see this pattern clearly. Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, not because God appointed a season of wandering, but because they sustained a cycle of unbelief and disobedience. That cycle kept them circling the same desert, seeing the same mountains, eating the same manna, when God's intention was to transition them into a new season of promise. What they called waiting on God was really God waiting on them to break the cycle. Cycles are sustained in the mind before they are lived out in behavior. Your thoughts shape your decisions, and your decisions sustain your cycles. That is why renewal of the mind is central to transformation. If you continue to think the same, you will continue to live the same, and the cycle will continue unbroken. But when your thinking shifts to align with truth, your choices shift, and the cycle begins to crumble. This is why revelation is so powerful. It exposes the lie that sustains the cycle and empowers you to step into freedom. God works through seasons, and when you discern the season you are in, you can align your faith and actions with His timing. But when you confuse a cycle for a season, you surrender to bondage that God never ordained. That is why clarity is essential. Ask yourself, is this truly a season God has appointed for me? Or is this a cycle I have sustained through my choices? That question alone can unlock the doorway to transformation. One sudden opportunity from God can break years of repeated struggles in a moment. What people spend a lifetime trying to achieve through effort, strategy, or connections, God can accomplish in a single act of divine intervention. The truth about life is that struggles often linger not because of a lack of desire, but because cycles of resistance, delay, and obstacles seem to chain a person to the same experiences. Someone may labor for years trying to rise out of poverty, build credibility, or step into their calling, only to feel as if nothing changes. But the moment God releases a divine opportunity, everything that once resisted begins to collapse. What once looked impossible becomes accessible in an instant, and the years of effort are swallowed up by one breakthrough. This is what makes God's opportunities different from human opportunities. Human opportunities often require long negotiations, compromise, or even striving for validation. But divine opportunities are not earned, they are granted. They carry favor that no man can manufacture. They open doors that human effort could never push open. Joseph spent over a decade dealing with betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. By human standards, he had no path forward. Yet, one sudden opportunity, a dream that needed interpretation before Pharaoh, shifted him from the dungeon to the throne. Years of injustice were broken in a single day because one divine opportunity carried the power to end every cycle at once. When God sends a sudden opportunity, it does not just affect one area of life, it causes a ripple effect. A door opening in one area begins to dismantle struggles in other areas simultaneously. When Joseph was elevated, the cycle of rejection ended, the cycle of slavery ended, the cycle of false accusation ended, and even the cycle of being forgotten by men ended. One opportunity touched multiple chains and shattered them all. That is the nature of God's intervention. Comprehensive, sudden, and undeniable. This truth shows why you cannot measure your destiny by your current struggles. You may be in a place where nothing seems to be moving, where you feel stuck in patterns of defeat, where every effort feels wasted. But what looks like stagnation is simply the setup for divine interruption. When the sudden opportunity comes, it will not require permission from your past. It will not need validation from those who doubted you. And it will not be hindered by the years you feel you have lost. God does not work in gradual explanations. He works in sudden manifestations. Preparation, however, is what positions you to recognize and seize the moment when it arrives. Opportunities may come suddenly, but they are not random. God does not place someone in a position of influence or promotion without first preparing them in hiddenness. David's sudden opportunity came when Goliath taunted Israel. To everyone else, it was a threat. But to David, it was a divine opportunity. His years of unseen battles with lions and bears had prepared him for the sudden moment that would end Israel's cycle of fear. That one opportunity not only broke the cycle for a nation, but shifted David into his destiny as a leader. This is why faithfulness in the unseen seasons matters. You never know when the sudden opportunity will appear, but if you have been prepared in obscurity, you will be ready to act decisively when it comes. Many people miss their divine moment because it does not appear the way they expected. Opportunities are often disguised as challenges, responsibilities, or even inconveniences. The key is discernment, being able to see the divine hand in what looks ordinary. When the sudden opportunity comes, it accelerates you beyond time. What should have taken years can happen in a day. What should have required countless steps can be resolved in one divine intervention. The woman with the issue of blood struggled for 12 years, spending all she had on physicians with no improvement. But one encounter with Jesus, one sudden opportunity to touch the hem of his garment, ended 12 years of suffering in an instant. That opportunity not only healed her body, but restored her dignity, her place in society, and her hope for the future. One divine opportunity is not just about solving a problem. It is about shifting identity and destiny. It takes you out of a cycle of limitation and repositions you into the flow of God's purpose. That is why you cannot afford to despise small beginnings or complain about waiting seasons. The sudden opportunity is on its way, and when it arrives, it will make sense of everything you endured. It will redeem lost time. It will silence the voice of your enemies, and it will demonstrate the power of God in your life in a way that no human explanation can deny. Your preparation in hidden places equips you for divine interruption. What many people fail to realize is that God often works behind the scenes, shaping, molding, and preparing you long before you ever step into the moment of visibility. The hidden places are not punishments. They are classrooms. They are the arenas where character is formed, where faith is tested, and where skills are sharpened. It is easy to desire the spotlight of opportunity, but without preparation in secret, the spotlight can destroy you rather than elevate you. When you study the lives of those God used greatly, you will find a consistent pattern. Before the platform came the process. Joseph was hidden in Potiphar's house and later in prison, learning leadership, stewardship, and patience. David was hidden in the fields, tending sheep and practicing with a sling. Moses was hidden on the backside of the desert, shepherding flocks after leaving Egypt. Jesus himself lived 30 years in obscurity before stepping into a ministry that lasted just over 3 years, but changed the course of history. The hidden places where God develops what cannot be seen. Integrity, humility, endurance, and spiritual maturity. Preparation is often uncomfortable because it feels like delay. When you are hidden, it can seem like nothing is happening, as if God has forgotten you. But in truth, the hidden season is God's way of protecting you until the right time. He hides you not to deny you, but to prepare you. If you step into opportunity without preparation, the weight of responsibility can crush you. Opportunity without preparation is dangerous, but opportunity with preparation brings transformation. The hidden place also strips away dependency on external validation. When no one sees your efforts, when no applause comes, and when recognition is absent, you learn to anchor your identity in God alone. That is what sustains you when visibility finally comes. Many people collapse under public pressure because they never learned in private to depend on God's affirmation rather than human approval. The hidden place refines motives so that when divine interruption comes, your focus is not on proving yourself, but on fulfilling God's purpose. Preparation in hiddenness also teaches discipline. David did not wait until Goliath appeared to learn how to fight. He was already skilled because of consistent practice. He faced lions and bears when no one was watching, and those victories became the foundation for his public breakthrough. Likewise, what you do consistently in obscurity becomes your strength in moments of opportunity. Prayer habits formed in secret become power in public. A wisdom developed through study in silence becomes authority when you speak. Small acts of obedience in private qualify you for larger assignments in the open. The hidden place is also where God heals and shapes your heart. You cannot carry cycles of bitterness, pride, or insecurity into the next level. The process of preparation exposes what is unhealthy and gives God room to purify you. Joseph had to be processed in hiddenness so that when he finally stood before his brothers, he could extend forgiveness instead of revenge. That kind of maturity is only developed when you allow hidden seasons to do their work. Without that heart work, opportunity can become a stage for unresolved pain. Divine interruption often comes suddenly, but it is never random. The suddenness is only from the perspective of man. From God's perspective, He has been preparing you all along. What looks like an overnight breakthrough is the result of years of hidden preparation. That is why it is important not to despise small tasks or ordinary responsibilities. The skills and character you are developing in those unnoticed moments are the very tools you will need when the opportunity comes. Consider Esther. Before she became queen, she spent months in preparation, beauty treatments, discipline, and training that seemed excessive at the time. Yet when the moment came for her to stand before the king, all of that preparation positioned her to be chosen. Later, when the time came to intercede for her people, she was already in place, already equipped, already prepared. What seemed like delay was actually divine setup. The preparation in hidden places also ensures that when divine interruption comes, you will not be intimidated by the magnitude of the assignment. God knows what He has called you to, and He will not send opportunity without first equipping you. That is why challenges in hidden seasons should not discourage you. They are training. Every difficulty you overcome, every test of faith you endure, every private battle you win is equipping you for the sudden opportunity that will demand all of that strength at once. Hidden seasons may feel like isolation, but they're actually insulation. God covers you, trains you, and develops you away from unnecessary exposure so that when the right moment arrives, you step into it ready, steady, and unshakable. The hidden place is where roots grow deep, and only deep roots can sustain tall trees. Without roots, exposure leads to collapse. With roots, exposure leads to fruitfulness. That is why preparation in hidden places is not wasted. It is the very thing that ensures divine interruption will not just come, but that when it comes, you will be ready to walk in it fully. Your discernment is required to recognize God's opportunity when it arrives. Divine opportunities do not always come wrapped in glory, comfort, or obvious blessing. More often they appear disguised in challenges, responsibilities, inconveniences, or even crises. Without discernment, it is easy to miss what God is releasing because it does not look the way you expected. Discernment is the ability to perceive the hand of God in what seems ordinary, to see beyond the surface of a moment and recognize its divine significance. Many people pray for breakthrough but fail to recognize it when it comes because they are looking through natural eyes instead of spiritual vision. Throughout Scripture, God's opportunities rarely appeared in predictable forms. David's opportunity to step into destiny came in the form of a giant that terrified everyone else. To the Israelite army, Goliath was a threat, but to David, he was the door. Joseph's opportunity came as a request to interpret a dream in prison, something small that ultimately connected him to Pharaoh's palace. Ruth's opportunity appeared in the form of gleaning behind reapers in a field, an act of humility that aligned her with Boaz and changed her future forever. What looked like ordinary tasks were actually divine opportunities. Without discernment, those moments would have been dismissed as insignificant. Discernment requires a heart that is aligned with God's Spirit. When your focus is on your struggles, disappointments, or fears, you may overlook the very thing God is sending to shift you. But when your heart is sensitive, you will see opportunities that others overlook. The widow in Zarephath had only a handful of flour and oil left, Yet her discernment allowed her to respond to Elijah's request, which unlocked provision for her household. She could have seen it as a burden, but instead, she discerned it as a moment of divine assignment. Another dimension of discernment is timing. Opportunities are not always permanent. Some are seasonal, appearing only for a moment. If you hesitate or misinterpret the moment, you can miss what God intends. The children of Israel were promised entry into the land of Canaan, but when the opportunity came, their lack of discernment led to fear and unbelief. They missed their window, and an entire generation wandered in the wilderness as a result. Recognizing the timing of God is as important as recognizing the opportunity itself. Discernment also helps you separate distractions from true doors. Not every open door is from God. Some doors are traps designed to lure you away from your assignment. Without discernment, you may step into something that looks promising but leads to bondage. That is why discernment must be rooted in prayer wisdom and alignment with God's word. Divine opportunities will always align with his purpose and never contradict his principles. If an opportunity requires you to compromise your integrity or abandon your values, it is not from God. Discernment shields you from deception and positions you to embrace only what heaven has ordained. Another aspect of discernment is the ability to perceive opportunity in people. Sometimes the divine opportunity is not a situation but a person God places in your path. The Shunammite woman discerned that Elisha was a man of God, so she built a room for him in her house. That act of discernment opened the door for miracles in her life, including the birth of a son and his later resurrection. Opportunities are often hidden in relationships, and without discernment, you may dismiss people who carry keys to your destiny. Discernment requires humility because opportunities often come in ways that challenge your pride. Naaman almost missed his healing because the instruction to dip in the Jordan River seemed too simple and beneath him. Yet the opportunity for healing was hidden in obedience to a humble act. Pride blinds discernment, but humility sharpens it. God's opportunities are often wrapped in simplicity, and only those who are humble enough to obey can step into the breakthrough. Discernment is sharpened through intimacy with God. The closer you walk with him, the more clearly you hear his voice and sense his nudges. When opportunities arrive, there will always be a mixture of fear, uncertainty, or opposition. But discernment allows you to look beyond the noise and recognize that God's hand is in it. Peter saw Jesus walking on water and discerned the moment, asking, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come." That discernment led him into an experience of the supernatural that no one else shared. Without discernment, opportunities can slip away unnoticed. But with discernment, even the smallest door can be recognized as the gateway to destiny. It is not about how grand the opportunity looks on the outside, but about perceiving what God is doing through it. Discernment opens your eyes to divine timing, aligns you with God's purpose, and protects you from counterfeits. It trains you to see what others cannot see, to value what others ignore, and to step boldly into what God has ordained. You said a single breakthrough can redeem time and end generational cycles at once. God is not limited by the years you feel have been wasted, nor is he bound by the history of your family line. When he releases a breakthrough, it carries the power not only to transform your present, but also to heal your past and secure your future. There are moments in life when one divine act cancels decades of struggle, dismantles patterns that seemed unshakable, and shifts an entire lineage into a new trajectory. What took generations to establish in dysfunction can be overturned in a single moment of God's intervention. One of the most powerful truths about breakthrough is that it has the ability to redeem time. People often feel as though the years lost to mistakes, failures, or delays can never be recovered. They mourn opportunities they missed or seasons they wasted. Yet when God intervenes, he accelerates progress in such a way that what was lost is restored. The prophet Joel declared that God would restore the years the locusts have eaten. That is not just poetic language. It is the revelation that God can compress decades of loss into a single season of abundance. A single breakthrough can give you back more than what was taken, positioning you ahead of schedule in a way that only divine grace can accomplish. Breakthrough is not limited to individuals. It impacts families, bloodlines, and nations. Many people live under the weight of generational cycles, patterns of poverty, broken marriages, addiction, sickness, or failure that seem to repeat with every generation. These cycles are not just habits, they are strongholds that shape the culture of families and perpetuate limitations. But one divine breakthrough can sever those chains and establish a new cycle of blessing. When Abraham obeyed God's call, his breakthrough did not just affect him, it birthed a covenant that would bless generations after him. His obedience shifted his lineage from idolatry to inheritance, from obscurity to legacy. This is why a single breakthrough is never just about you. It is about everyone connected to you and those who will come after you. Your children and grandchildren benefit from the door as God opens for you. Your obedience, your faith, your willingness to align with God creates pathways they will walk on without having to fight the battles you fought. The cycles that held your ancestors do not have to hold your descendants. A breakthrough in your life can become the foundation of freedom for those who follow. The redeeming power of breakthrough is seen throughout Scripture. The woman with the issue of blood endured 12 years of pain and shame, yet in one moment of faith-filled contact with Jesus, everything changed. That single encounter restored her health, dignity, and ability to move forward. The man at the pool of Bethesda had been bound for 38 years, waiting for healing until one encounter with Jesus ended the cycle of waiting in an instant. In both cases, decades of limitation were overturned by a breakthrough that happened in a single day. What makes breakthrough so powerful is that it brings acceleration. Breakthrough does not simply bring you back to where you should have been. It propels you beyond. It redeems lost time by moving you forward faster than natural progression could allow. That is why divine breakthrough feels sudden, even though it may have been prepared in silence for years. It collapses timelines, overrides natural processes, and establishes outcomes that human effort could never achieve. Breakthrough is also holistic. When God intervenes, he does not only address the visible issue, he addresses the root. One breakthrough can touch your finances, your health, your relationships, and your identity simultaneously. When Israel left Egypt, the breakthrough was not just freedom from slavery, it was wealth transfer, national identity, and a new covenant relationship with God. The same God who orchestrated that deliverance is able to release a breakthrough that touches every area of your life at once. Generational cycles are broken when a person decides to align with God's purpose and allow him to release what only he can. Your faith, your decisions, and your willingness to believe in the possibility of breakthrough open the door for cycles to end. What seems unchangeable can shift instantly because God specializes in doing what appears impossible. No matter how long a cycle has lasted, no matter how deep its roots, the power of one breakthrough is greater. A single breakthrough is not simply about escape from hardship. It is about repositioning for destiny. It is God's way of resetting the trajectory of your life so that his original intent is fulfilled. The years of wandering, the seasons of delay, the patterns of defeat all bow to the authority of one divine act. Breakthrough restores what was lost, redeems what was wasted, and ensures that future generations live free from what once bound the past.